This episode is brought to you by Drizzly. Tonight seems like a great night as any to wind down with some wine after a long day. But what if you're already in your comfy clothes, deep in the couch with your hand glued to your remote? Nobody in that position wants to get up and leave the house for a drink run. And with Drizzly, the go-to app for drinks delivery, you don't have to. You can choose from a huge selection of wines, be it a bottle or two of your go-tos or a little something new. And you can even place your order with a phone in one hand and your remote still solidly in place in the other. Download the Drizzly app or go to drizzly.com. That's DRIZLY.com and have an epic at-home wine night because all those shows aren't going to watch themselves. Must be 21 plus, not available in all locations. Hi, I'm Yue Xu.
And I'm Julie Kraftchick.
We're active daters turned dating sociologists.
Here to dive into everything modern dating and relationships.
Welcome to the Dateable podcast. Happy September, everyone. Where did this year go?
Flying by.
Did we end up in September already? I feel like I'm barely writing 2023. On anything.
I feel like time always goes so fast. It's like slow in the day, and then when you look at it cumulatively, you're like, how did another year go by?
I mean, you just turned 40, but you're now getting closer to
Don't
41.
say that. I'm just kidding.
Oh, it's so wild. But I feel like we should close the loop on our Joshua Tree / Palm Springs trip because we were so excited about going. We were doing this like dateable retreat, the two of us, lay out by the pool and dream big. Then a hurricane decides to grace Southern California, unprecedented. And we were warned that at first it was like a category 4 to seek shelter. And the desert, high desert was like high warning because of flooding. So we canceled our trip, sadly. Or postponed, I should say.
I know. Hopefully this wasn't a bad omen, but it's okay. It's new. We are going in September. It's actually going to be better weather. Palm Springs in August is kind of brutal. So maybe it all worked out for the best. And I will say, like, ability to get refunded on travel was pretty freaking seamless for this.
Yeah.
So we were lucky enough. We're staying at Airbnb of UA's friends. She was able to refund us. We rebooked. Same with my flights. Very easy. So yeah, I was unfortunate. Also, the 2 days that we were going to be there were the 2 days of the hurricane. So I'm kind of
torrential rain.
Kind of glad we didn't do it because like the whole point of Palm Springs is to be in the pool in the sun.
Yeah,
we were just kind of going to be sitting at home in torrential rains. Like I'd be flying to a hurricane
into the eye of the hurricane, which is not the best idea. But this just shows the difference in our personalities. Because when you first called me, be like, "Do you think we should still go?" I remember just being like, "You're being super vigilant. I think it's totally fine. It's just, we've never seen a hurricane in Southern California. It's totally fine." And then I turn on the news. It's like, seek shelter. The grocery stores were out of toilet paper, water, everything, like chargers, flashlights, everything was gone. And I'm like, oh shit, this is like a real thing. If you hadn't said something to me, I would not have thought it was as bad as it was going to be.
I will not take credit. If my mom did not say something to me, I was also ready to board that plane. So, I think it's just being alert. And I talked to you about the hurricane. You're like, oh, it won't be a big deal. It'll pass.
Yeah, I was like, it's fine.
So then when she was messaging me, I'm like, no, it'll be fine. And then after I kind of brushed it off, I did do some research. I'm like, do I really want to go down for this? Like, it really does not look fun.
Yeah. And also, it's like SF was experiencing like the best weather
it was
possible
beautiful.
that weekend.
I'm just like, why? But it's okay. We will have our retreat. It's going to be beautiful out. It's going to be amazing. And I'm very excited.
But the hurricane did not stop us from bringing you the next episode.
No, it didn't.
This is when I feel, what would you call him? He's not like an idol. Is he an idol to you? I don't know.
Okay, so we got an email from our guest today, Evan Marc Katz, booking agent. And we get a lot of emails from booking agents, a lot of them, so many, in fact. And this immediately caught my eye because I remembered when I was in the thick of dating. This is probably when I was, I don't know, like 25, 26, maybe 26, 27. When I was 25, I moved here. Definitely wasn't dating, was more just like hooking up, having fun. But then got into this mode. All my friends wanted to suddenly settle down. And I'm like, oh, maybe I should try these dating dating apps also. And my best friend from college that lives in SF Bay Area too, she had this random roommate at the time that was probably 10 years older than us. And she had this binder, this really thick binder that was like how to online date. And we were we were immersed. Like, I mean, this was okay. Like we already said, I just turned 40. So this is over 15 years ago, right? Like this is a long time ago. And this binder was just held the secrets to online dating. I'll call it online dating. It wasn't even dating apps. We had to use Match.com, JDate, eHarmony, all those like the old school dating apps. And this guy was the author of the binder, Evan Marc Katz, and she had gone to his workshops. This roommate, I honestly don't even remember the roommate's name, but I will remember her always for introducing us to Evan Marc Katz. She just spoke so highly of him because she had gone to all his like online dating seminars, and she passed the gospel down. She passed the gospel down to my friend, and then we started like reading about him online. We got his ebooks. You know, we started really getting into all of his stuff. And I will say he was one of the first dating coaches that felt like he was really at the end of the day trying to put you first, because before him, I had read all the dating books, Why Men Love Bitches, The Rules, all the terrible dating books that basically tell you to be someone else. And this was the first time I was hearing, you are amazing. You are just taking this, right? Like you are standing for things that you shouldn't be standing for. And it was a very different approach. Like his whole, I guess, demographic is like smart, successful women is his primary demographic. I think everything he says on this podcast applies to everyone, regardless of your gender, your sexual orientation. It's applicable to all, but just to put into context, that is his primary demographic. So I think, you know, like he had a lot of ways to combat a lot of the dating advice that hetero women have been fed for years.
I think it's hilarious that the binder is about how to online date.
Yeah.
But it's a physical binder.
Okay, this was back in the day, though. We had another dating coach, Marty Batista, like probably, I don't know, a few seasons back. And she was the other person. It was Evan Marc Katz and Marty Batista. Those were the two that I had somehow found online. There was a third, actually. We have not had her yet. But the three of them were the people that I sought out advice from, similar to how people seek advice from us. So it's all full circle now. But those were the three that I had. And I brought this up when we talked to Marty Batista. I joined a program of hers, and she sent a scan drive.
Wait, like a USB?
USB, and you plugged it into your computer. And that's how you got the recordings. It wasn't online. So this is clearly dating itself, but this is the world that we were in. And this is crazy that online dating has been around so long. And of course, it's made tons of changes, yet a lot has also stayed the same.
I like that he has evolved his content, because I always get afraid of these pioneers of the dating coaching industry because they have very traditionalist views, but he's definitely one of the few who have a very open-minded perspective about dating. He is evolving with the times, which I really appreciate. And it's just so funny because like what you're describing, half of our audience probably cannot relate to at all. If you think about some of the things that we had to do, even in college, I had to turn in my homework through floppy disks. I had to make deadline by 5 p.m. to turn physical disc in. Who does that anymore? That's just like so unrelatable. But those are things that your predecessors had to go through, kids. Okay? Appreciate us.
Also, online dating was really taboo and almost shameful. So that's also probably why this person had the binder, right? It's like this secret thing that you could look at home on your own, because you didn't have it on your app. Like I remember when Tinder came out, it was revolutionary as someone that had been through online dating with like Match.com and the more traditional sites, because people were out and about showing each other matches and swiping openly. In the past, you went home, you had a screen name. You didn't even have your name. Now it's like first in last name, just put it out there. No one gives a shit anymore. It is kind of amazing how far it's come and how normalized it's become.
I went through my old Match.com messages again the other day, and I was like, oh, I wonder if I can find some of these dudes. And I did find one because he had his Yahoo address in his profile, and I found him. He's like a police officer in New Jersey. It looks super legit, like has family and kids and all that stuff. I mean, I don't remember messaging him at all. I just found him in my messages. But we have all these artifacts from old ways of dating. And nowadays, we have so many apps to choose from. One of them is The League, which I haven't heard about in a really long time, to be honest. We had Amanda Bradford, the founder, on like early season when she first started The League. But in recent years, I haven't heard of anybody using the app.
Yeah, she was a big win for us back in the day. She was the first dating app founder we had. She came to UA's studio apartment. We sat there. We did a 2-part episode with her because we had so much to talk about. And I agree with you. It's one of those apps that was super hot for a period because for anyone that's unfamiliar, it was supposed to be kind of like the Ivy League of dating apps that you had to apply to. Do you remember the wait list was insane?
Yes, insane.
I remember I couldn't get off the wait list for a while. And then like one of my friends got in. I was so jealous. But also one of my friends, she wanted to get off the wait list. One of my friends from Boston. And it was after we had Amanda and then Meredith, who was their like head of community, on our podcast. So I wrote to Meredith and she got her off the wait list, my friend. And then she met her husband on The League.
No
they have a
way.
kid now.
What a good story.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm basically the Cupid here.
It's because of you.
Or Meredith.
We have you to thank. Yeah. It's like getting into an exclusive club. We just had the in.
Yeah.
In those early days. But now, I mean, recent years, I haven't heard much about them, but they just were acquired by the Match Group. And I'm super curious what's going to happen to the app because it was always kind of like an elitist vibe. Yeah. I did meet my partner of 2 years from there.
Yeah,
so,
I was going to say, did you meet your ex there? Yeah.
I sure did. XX. And he was wonderful. It was a good enough relationship for that time. And he was a wonderful man. But with the Match Group taking over, they're going to have a lot more control and say into the app. Is it going to still be that kind of elitist vibe? I don't know.
Well, I think more of it that's interesting is they own pretty much every single app except for Bumble. That's owned. Are they owned by Badoo or have some partnership with them? I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, something like that.
But everyone else, like OkCupid, Hinge, Tinder, like all of those, even that app that was from the Betches founders, they're owned by Match. Like everyone has Match.com affiliation. So it's kind of crazy how much of a monopoly they have. And it's also kind of nuts that no one cares. You know, like other industries, like there's rules and regulations about one company owning everything. Yet for whatever reason in dating apps, no one cares.
Yep. Bumble is owned by Blackstone.
Interesting.
It just sold in 2019. I don't know what's going to happen then. It just feels like, I mean, maybe some predictions here. I feel like I think the app needed help in terms of like just overall increasing users. I can't name one person in my friend circle that uses The League right now. And I wonder if they'll use it to experiment more with like niche dating. Mm-hmm. Maybe this is more of like pedigree dating or interest-based dating, which I feel like Match has been really experimental with recently.
Well, maybe it'll be a positive thing for them because I know their premium membership became like, I forget the exact amount, but it was something absurd, like between $250 and $500 a month. Like it was absurd.
What?
Yeah. So I think there was clearly like a need to get, people in at this expensive rate, whether that is that there wasn't enough people or who knows what the reason and logic was. I was on The League. I would say I never really had the best luck on The League because you only got like a couple matches at a time. It was very limited. Mm-hmm. And for me, that did not work. Like I was the type of online dater that, I did it one day a week and I went full steam to get like a little trickle every day. And, for some people that totally works. For me, it didn't. So I didn't have the best luck on there, but I'm wondering if there'll be more people because they can feed into other parts of the ecosystem.
Right. Yeah, I do wonder about that. And I wonder how it works now because we haven't been on it in so many years. Maybe they do give you more matches.
Yeah,
now.
well, you can go into the field and experiment for us. I used to be the resident dater experimenter, so.
I know. It's just not calling my name at this point. The online dating, app dating is just not calling my name right now. I'm still like slowly dipping my toes back into the dating pool, if you will. But one day I will report back. I will let you know how all the apps are doing. I keep getting ads for new apps though.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to try one of the really obscure ones. There's one called like Monster Dating where you're a monster avatar dating other monster avatars. You don't actually know what each other looks like till you match and decide you want to reveal your identities, which I'm like, cool, why not?
That's so funny. You never know who will be anywhere. I mean, that's what we're going to be talking about in this episode, about where are all the dateable people? We're all wondering, they are everywhere. That's like, there'll be a lot more in-depth conversation here, but I think we think there's this magical secret place, but there's probably someone good on the monster dating site. There's probably someone there, but you have to obviously do what works for you and what you feel compelled to do. I think that's the biggest thing too, is it's not so black and white, but like what's something that you can do that actually won't wear you down? I was thinking about it the other day, and it's like when people ask me, like when I think about like how I met my partner, it's really because of perseverance. Like that's really the reason I met my partner. And everyone needs to find the way that's not going to burn them out, that they can keep going in a way that keeps you positive.
Yeah.
We could go on all day about this, but we might as well get to the meat of this episode before we do. At Dateable Podcast, that's us on pretty much all the socials, Instagram, Facebook. You can find us at our Facebook group. Those are probably the top two ways that we connect with all of you all in our audience. But, TikTok, it's growing. Help us get there. It's support, if nothing else. And, don't forget to leave a rating and review. As we've mentioned before, in podcasting, this is so, so important. We are so close to getting to our goal of 1K on Apple. So if you haven't done it yet, please leave us 5 stars. If you did it a while ago and you want to refresh your rating with 5 stars, that's also great. Or if you listen on Spotify and Apple, but you've only left it on Apple, go in Spotify and leave us 5 stars there. All of this helps so much for us to keep going and to bring you the content that's going to help change modern dating. Okay, before we get into it, let's hear a message from our sponsor.
This episode is made possible by Honeylove. Ladies, summer is the worst time to suffer with an uncomfortable bra. When I'm sweaty, I really can't stand wearing bras that make me sweatier, with underwires that poke and pinch me. You all know exactly what I'm talking about. Thankfully, Honeylove has revolutionized the bra game. Upgrade from traditional bras that use uncomfortable underwire and bulky fabrics that trap heat. Honeylove's bras feature supportive bonding that eliminates the need for underwire without sacrificing lift. Plus, they're made with fabric that's so soft it feels like a second skin. You'll immediately feel and see the difference. It's so next level comfortable, you'll forget you're wearing it. Their bestseller crossover bra is my go-to summer bra. It gives all the support without the underwires. Treat yourself to the best shapewear on the market and save 20% off at honeylove.com/dateable. Use our exclusive link to get 20% off. honeylove.com/dateable. Cinched, snatched, and lifted. It's hot girl season thanks to Honeylove. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. Have you ever had racing thoughts that keep you up at night? I feel like that was me every night while going through my recent breakup. It's that feeling of trying to fall asleep, but my mind just can't stop racing. Well, it turns out one great way to make those racing thoughts go away is to talk them through. Therapy gives you a place to do that, so you can get out of your negative thought cycles and find some mental and emotional peace. After being sleep deprived for a few weeks, I mentioned it to my therapist, and she was able to help me clearly process my thoughts so I don't spiral. Now I have a whole routine I do before I go to bed, and I'm glad to say I'm sleeping again. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Get a break from your thoughts with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/dateable today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/DATEABLE.
Okay, let's hear it from Evan Marc Katz.
With a podcast named Dateable, we often get the question, what makes someone dateable and where are all the dateable people? So many singles tell us there are no longer dateable people out there. There are no good people out there. The pool has run dry. So what is the secret? Is there a secret? Our guest today will help us uncover that. His name is Evan Marc Katz. He's a dating coach, and he's here to talk about the fact that it's not that there aren't dateable people out there. It's just that you have to show up in a way that opens you up to the dateable people. So what does that mean? Who are you? He is a dating coach for smart, strong, successful women who want to find lasting love, who has been helping singles since 2003. He's the author of 4 books and has been featured in hundreds of media outlets, including Today, New York Times, CNN, and is the host of the Love You podcast. My neighbor lives in LA, been there for 27 years, originally from New York, and he is married. And we just found out a little bit about his wife because she knows where everything is. So
welcome, Evan. We're so excited to have you.
Thank you for having me.
I found you way back in the day, and this was very serendipitous to get this email to have you on this podcast. When I was in the thick of dating, you were one of the few sane people out there with advice, because there's a lot of bad dating advice out there.
I'll take sane as a big compliment in a pretty insane world.
You were the sane dating coach out there, not one of the crazy ones. How did you get into this? And is your clientele mostly women?
My clientele is completely women.
Completely women.
You guys have hosted dating coaches before. So again, I want to say this as gently as I can. I'm the first one. There's like thousands of people who do this. But in 2003, I made up this job that didn't exist before because I was a failed screenwriter. And I came to LA and I wanted to write for friends. And I had an agent and I had a manager. And I worked for the TV show Ellen. And I got a freelance job for Nickelodeon. And I was in Project Greenlight with Matt Damon and Ben Affleck. And I made a total of $7,000 in my 20s.
Wow.
And so when I realized I didn't want to be the 40-year-old guy trying to sell a screenplay, because I know you know a couple of people like that, I figured I had to pivot. And so I went to UCLA Film School and I got a job answering phones at JDate to support myself.
Ah, okay.
And so getting yelled at by strangers on the site that I was using gave me the inspiration that maybe I should write a book about online dating. And I wrote a book about online dating in 2003, got published in February 2004. And then I just became the dating guy and dropped out of film school. And for the first 5 years, I was just a generic dating coach before anybody had established the claim to being such. And over that course of time, I realized 80% of the people turning to me were women. Men need help. Men don't ask for help. So therefore, they're largely useless.
Mm-hmm.
So do you see what we see? This scarcity mindset of like, where are all these dateable people? Why can't I find anyone on the apps, in real life, wherever?
Well, it's endemic to the medium. And there's certainly a debate about what quality means. Ultimately, to me, quality is how he treats you, first and foremost. And you can't always tell how someone's going to treat you from an app, unfortunately. And so as a man, I really try to validate as much as I can women's experience. And whatever you're experiencing isn't wrong. It's that it's limited, right? You haven't dated everybody in LA. It would be impossible. So we could say X, Y, and Z about what's wrong with LA, what's wrong with men, what's wrong with Bumble. And at the end of the day, unless you have figured out what you're doing wrong, you'll never crack the code. And there's always something that we can do differently, even if we could simultaneously blame men. So even if you're completely right about how horrible the pool is, hey, you're an Ivy League institution. You could reject 90% of guys. Good. Let's keep our standards super high. But now within the 10%, now what's the reason it's so hard?
I like that reframe.
I mean, that's such a good point because most of the people you meet are not going to be a good match for you.
That's the hard part.
Yeah. If you're only focusing on the 90%, then of course you're going to think there's nobody good out there.
Right.
If it's not too personal, what part of town do you live in?
Culver City.
Culver City. What a great part of town. Go to West Side Pavilion, walk around, look at all the men in the mall. What percentage of them are marriage material? Not many. In fact, I would venture to guess it's the same percentage of men that you'll find online. So the crazy part is that we're perpetually surprised that the men online are different than the men at the mall or at the Hollywood Bowl.
Yeah.
And it's a cross-section of people. We need to keep our expectations realistic. Otherwise, every date is going to be, I'm so disappointed. I can't believe it's another person who's not the one. And if it was that easy to find the one, you already would have found the one.
Yeah.
Like, you've been in love how many times in your whole life? So we need to keep an even keel. Default setting in dating is failure. So we need to understand that and not get so bent out of shape and surprised and burnt out about it.
I mean, this is something that you and I say all the time. Like, for whatever reason, there is this different expectation of who you're going to meet online. Like, they're given to you on a silver platter, hand chosen to be the best perfect mate for you. But that's just not how it is. So how do you get your clients to start thinking this way and to like look at it still like, okay, cool, now the 10%, that's abundance mindset?
Right. And again, I love the fact that you guys referenced that. Abundance and confidence is the first thing anybody needs to find love. But if you have, again, this is without blame, failed over and over, every relationship I have hasn't worked, how could you feel confident? How could you feel confident in yourself? How could you feel confident that your partner's out there? It's going to take a toll like death by 1,000 cuts. So everything I share in my work, what I'm sharing with you guys today, isn't like, guy up on a mountain talking down. I went on 300 dates before I found my wife who found my headphones today. This wasn't like some happy accident. It was a lot of fucking hard work. So recognizing that and then saying, okay, I'm not going to give up. That's a given. I want what I want. If I want to get married, I'm going to get married. If I want a family, I'm going to have a family. So now it's just a matter of when and then where am I responsible? What can I do differently to produce a different result? Because if someone comes to a coach and their big problem is there's no good men out there, the Bay Area is terrible, everybody online is a loser, the coach can't do anything because Tinder's going to be the same and the Bay Area is going to be the same and men are going to be the same. We can't change any of that stuff. So it always has to come from within. And that's sometimes a pill to swallow when the easy thing to do is being like, fucking men.
Yeah. It's so easy to blame external factors. So do you believe that dating is a numbers game?
That's a good question. Yes and no. Yes, in as much as it will take a volume. You can't just throw your dart, hit your husband, and go home.
Right.
If we think of dating as a skill set, and most people don't, we think it's a thing that should just come naturally to us. Well, some people are gifted public speakers, and some people are wonderful pianists, and some people are computer programmers. That's a skill. And it's a skill that one practices. So my clients are women who work 40, 50 hours a week. How much time do they put into the skill of choosing a compatible partner? 0 hours a week on the science of what a good partner looks like? So if I have the capacity to teach someone not what's wrong with her, she's fine. The biggest problem most women have is they got a broken man picker. It's like having a broken GPS. And if you have a broken GPS, you could drive around all day long and not get to your destination.
So we have a very similar viewpoint to you on the numbers game. Like, we agree, like, you can't just expect the first date you go on to be the person, but people can definitely develop that skill and date smarter. So how do people go from this I can't meet the right person mentality? Because we also see this with men too, and people that aren't hetero. Like, this is across the board, this picker issue. Right. So how do you start to realize that you're attracting people that aren't good for you?
By the way, everything you say really resonates with me. I want to pick up on one word. It was virtually the last thing you said, okay? Attracting the wrong people. I have a thing on that. My belief is that you don't attract the wrong people. You accept the wrong people.
Okay.
Attract would imply that you're some sort of magnet.
Yes.
Oh, the narcissist just flocked to me. I have no control. Why are these narcissists attaching themselves to me for 2 years? I can't even help how they attract to me like I'm a light and he's a moth. We don't attract the wrong people. We choose them, and we choose them over and over, day after day, year after year. I can't help what I'm attracted to, Evan. I can't help what I'm attracted to. So you're choosing this person. Someone else chooses a nice guy. If you choose the douchebag, it's not just the douchebag who's at fault. He's going to douche around however he wants. We need to choose better men. How do we choose better men? That is part of the skill set, and it doesn't happen instantly. It's a growth process, which is when I coach women in my Love You course, this isn't like a 2-week fix. We're signing up for 6 months to turn this train around that's been going off the rails for all these years.
What's the 5-second elevator pitch for how to better your picker?
The 5-second elevator pitch. That's such a journalist question. But I have an answer. I love the fact that you guys are going off script. This is nothing I was prepared for. I love it. Good relationships are easy. We have been told relationships take work. Oh, we know relationships take work. Our parents' relationship takes work. Every relationship I ever had took work. Think of every relationship I ever had that took work. Where did it end up?
Divorce, someone
Good
died.
relationships are easy. And if that becomes the only thing you take away from our conversation for your listeners, that's your new North Star. If your relationship is easy, the anxiety goes away, conflict is resolved, you could relax, be yourself, let down your guard, trust, know that person has your back and wants you to be happy. Everybody thinks relationships take work. They're not. We start from relationships are easy. And if 95% of your interactions are cake because you care about each other and you do the right thing, then the 5% kind of becomes negotiable and it never destabilizes the relationship. And if you talk to happily married people, they probably never thought of that, but it happens to be true.
So I have mixed opinion on this.
Sure.
I feel like
push it back.
Okay, yeah, let's push it back. I agree with you foundationally on this. I feel like any time that you're convincing someone to be in a relationship with you, needing to show them that you're worthy and all that, it's never a good sign. Things are not going to take off. You're not going to have the relationship you want. 100% agree that if you're trying so hard, especially in the beginning stages, it's not set up for success and probably not going to work out. That being said, I do recognize that there's two people that come from different backgrounds and have their own ways of thinking. And I mean, I've been through this with my partner. It's like there were times that, it took work to come to an agreement of how we're going to live our lives. And I wouldn't say it was so difficult, but I also wouldn't say it was easy either.
Yeah.
And I think going into it thinking the right relationship will be 100% easy 100% of the time made me start to question when it wasn't that.
Okay, great. Thanks. Just for whatever it's worth to clarify, never said 100%. There's nothing in the world that's 100% anything.
Yeah.
And so let's make a distinction between work and effort.
Yes. Okay.
Watering the garden takes effort. Working at a coal mine is work. They're qualitatively different, right? So does it take effort to be a good husband? Sure, of course, but not that much effort to do nice things for my wife, to put her needs first, to consider her feelings, to loop her in on all the decisions we make, to take her feedback and respect her autonomy and her opinions. So it's more like putting on a pair of shoes. If you put your foot in a shoe and it doesn't fit, how many years do you want to keep jamming your foot into the shoe, even though your foot's bleeding? That's most people in relationships. So I'm saying if you're going to buy a pair of shoes, make it shoes that you can wear for 40 years. They got to be really comfortable. And comfort becomes more important than just about anything else. Highly underrated comfort. Compatibility, highly underrated. Because compatibility isn't, oh, you're Jewish, I'm Jewish. That's not compatibility. Compatibility is how do we get along? How do we resolve conflict? Is my relationship perfect? Of course not. I'll tell you all the bad stuff about my relationship, but is it 95% easy and 5%? Yeah.
Yeah.
And if people lower their standards lower and lower to justify why they stay, they end up wasting years of their life trying to make something work that really should be let go. And I think it's one of the biggest mistakes that people make because they're told, work for your relationship. If it's that much work, maybe find one that's not so much work.
I really like that distinction because I think that was, what was getting me through even when it was a little challenging was this still feels easy overall. And it feels like someone's matching my effort and putting in the work. But I think I've definitely been in this situation where I've been trying to push something uphill and that felt very different, right? You're trying to make something be something that isn't something. So what are some signs when you say things are not working and it's time to let it go?
Anxiety is usually a bad sign. When people say, how do you know you've met the right person?
Yeah.
The first thing I'll say, and again, this is very, again, different from the way I hear about it talked about commonly. The common version is, oh my God, you just know he's the one. I never had this feeling. I think he's my soulmate. Again, that has a terrible track record. So I don't trust that at all. That's the broken clock.
Yeah.
If that ever works out,
Yeah.
that's a bonus. But usually it crashes and burns. If I look back at my dating, and it really helps to have a lot of dating experience. If you have a lot of dating experience, you have enough track record to pay attention to where did I feel I could be my best self? Where did the guy really see me? Make me feel safe, heard, and understood? Have I ever had a guy who made me feel safe, heard, and understood, where the anxiety was gone? I'm afraid to speak my mind. I'm afraid to ask if we're boyfriend, girlfriend. A good relationship is marked by a lack of anxiety. it's ease, it's comfort, it's calming. Having a good partner is calming.
I remember when I met
Yeah.
my partner, that was exactly how I felt. I was like, for the first time, I don't feel anxious. I feel like I could say whatever I want, didn't hold back anything. And that was not my experience before that. I was definitely an anxious dater for years.
Right.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. And that's now your North Star. Now, again,
Right.
regardless of what happens with your partner, whatever the future holds,
Yep.
you know that thing exists. One of the harder parts of my job is convincing people the thing that I'm talking about exists. It seems like a fantasy because relationship take work is the dominant paradigm.
Some of that takes a little bit of self-work, though. I would argue, like in Julie's situation, if she didn't put in the work herself, she would still feel anxious in this relationship.
Sure.
So what is the balance here? How much should people work on themselves and then in relation to their partner?
Question is whether the work that one is doing on oneself is actually making forward progress towards the goal. So I've noticed as a coach, for high achieving women, I've been in therapy for 10 years. I subscribe to like 42 dating podcasts. I've read every self-help book in the world. When was the last time you were on a date? I don't know, 2010.
Yeah.
So they're spending all the time looking inward at healing because dating is scary and dating has hurt and dating has disappointed. And there's a point where the rubber has to meet the road. So I don't pretend to be a therapist. I mean, I know enough to have an intelligent conversation, but I'm not a therapist. I've been doing this job for 20 years. So the thing that I do is say, hey, you've been working on your past. Oh, here's how my parents messed me up. Great, that's useful. What do you do now? We have 40 years. We have a blank canvas. What are we going to do the next 40 years? And how do we plot out a course to get you what you want instead of simply understanding why you got here? So that's where, to me, where the work does. I'm a dating coach because I help people with the mechanics of first dates and communication and sex and dating multiple guys and dating apps and marketing yourself and understanding the opposite sex. And there's all the stuff between what happened in your past and what you're doing with your future. So in my Love You course, I would say 80% of my job is helping women fix their broken man picker, and 20% of the job is helping them become better partners to deserve that great man that they're calling into their life.
There's definitely that balance because you can spend all this time bettering yourself. And then when the challenge comes is when you have the relational skills come out. And like when there is that thing that you react to. So if you're the type of person that feels like you've been burned over and over and over again, how do you start to have faith and believe that person is out there and change who you're picking?
If you haven't noticed, I use a lot of semi-tortured metaphors to make a point because I think they do a fair job of making a concept come home. So I'm going to use another tortured metaphor to make this point if you'll indulge me.
Yes, please.
Okay.
The bad guy that you're attracted to. Right. I like broken guys and their fixer-uppers. I like charismatic musicians. I like guys who are alpha males. Whatever your flavor of bad is. To me, I call that steak and ice cream. It is tasty, yummy food. There is nothing better. If I was on death row, I'd have me some steak and ice cream. And then people are on a diet of steak and ice cream for 30, 40, 50 years. And then they go to the doctor and the doctor's like, hey, if you keep this up, it's going to kill you. Like you're never going to lead a happy life if all you eat is steak and ice cream. And she's like, but that's all that's out there. There's nothing else out. That's all I see. And the doctor's like, no, when you go to a supermarket, you don't just go shopping in aisle 14. There's a whole section with healthier foods out there that you haven't even sampled yet. So wait, I'm supposed to just eat rice cakes and kale for like the rest of my life? Is that what you're telling me? Rice cakes and kale? And the doctor's like, I never said rice cakes or kale. I just said you can't live on steak and ice cream because it's not working for you. So those are the two buckets of men that women have convinced themselves exist. There's the charismatic, untamable, emotionally unavailable bad boy, and there's the boring guy who can't inspire any attraction. And that's it. There's no one else in the universe. And they're forgetting, here's the 10% of guys that can make you happy. I promise you, they're real. So usually people just stay shopping in the same aisle and then complain about what it does to their heart.
So what's like a way that you start to push people to shop in that different aisle?
You have to come close to having a heart attack first.
Hey.
Metaphorically. You're right. Metaphorically. You have to hit bottom. Like it's anything. Like when does someone say, this is the year I signed up for the gym on January 1st. It's, New Year's Eve and I got to lose 20 pounds. You look in the mirror, something doesn't look right. Your doctor gives you some bad news. There's something that spurs people into action. Someone has to say, again, with great respect, we do the same thing. Reading books, going to therapy, listening to podcasts hasn't gotten me into a better relationship yet. Something needs to change and it needs to be an action step, not just the illusion of help oh, if I just love myself more, there's only so far self-esteem will take you if you don't go on a date. And if you go on a date and you always go for the wrong guy, and the guy you always go for is the guy who never wants to commit because that's what you're attracted to, because that's what your dad was like, wash, rinse, and repeat. In my course, I spend the whole first 6 weeks we were just working on belief and confidence before we even go on a date. And then we teach them about online dating and give them a system and a cadence so that I tell women, you're the CEO of your love life. Men are just an intern applying for a job with you. Sorry if you have any male listeners, but sorry, guys, you're the intern, right? So if I could convince women they're the CEO of their love life and we're judging the intern, not just on his resume. Does he come in early? Does he stay late? That's the kind of intern who gets the job. And most women have not been judging men on that. 6 feet tall, 6 figures, square jaw, broad shoulders,
Right.
Same religion, politics, common interests.
Right, yeah.
Let's hold that thought for a quick message.
This episode is made possible by True Earth. I'm about to blow your mind with how you do your laundry. Have you ever heard of laundry detergent strips? Yeah. True Earth's mission is to help reduce the billions of plastic household containers that can end up in our landfills and oceans every year. With their laundry detergent eco strips, you can get rid of plastic jugs once and for all. It's so easy to use. I just pop a strip in the washer, add my laundry, and that's it. True Earth products are paraben-free, phosphate-free, free of added dyes, free of chlorine bleach, hypoallergenic, and it comes in cardboard packaging that you can recycle. It takes up so little space, and you can even take it on the go because it's not a liquid. Laundry will never be the same ever again, and they also make other household products. You can try True Earth today at true.earth/dateable and use Dateable to get 12% off. That's tru.earth/dateable and use the code DATEABLE to get 12% off today.
We are so excited to share with you our new podcast, Exit Interview. Dates don't usually end with a satisfaction survey, and yet we rate everything in our lives, from Uber drivers to local coffee shops. So why don't we do the same thing when dating?
We're here to conduct the ultimate romance review, featuring daters hungry for love who have agreed to call up old flames to gather honest feedback.
Welcome to Exit Interview.
He upgraded himself to business class while I was in economy.
Wait,
Wow.
what?
There's feedback that will make you cringe.
She could be a little bit hard-headed, like not reading the writing on the wall.
And feedback that will make you swoon.
When she said that she had feelings for you.
I had no idea.
Really? And maybe you'll learn a thing or two yourself about how you can be a better dater, lover, or partner.
Obviously, like, knew I was gonna learn something. I didn't expect this.
Welcome to Exit Interview.
Listen to Exit Interview on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
What I do hear from my girlfriends is that attraction is like conditioning. It's what you're conditioned to believe is attractive. And to be open to the chicken and the potatoes and all the other aisles, you have to unlearn all the conditioning you've been through. And that's really hard to do. Do you have some sort of hack or tactic for people to unlearn that?
I guess I'll stick with the metaphors for a while. I don't think it's as deep as a hack, even though I think it's a lovely term. I think of my son who's 11 years old, and when we go out, we go to a nice restaurant. He immediately is looking for the chicken nuggets on the menu because that's what he likes. Now, I hope he's not doing this when he's 30. He's looking for the chicken nuggets on the menu. That's what he's familiar with. That's what he's comfortable with. Everything else makes him a little uncomfortable. There's some risk involved in trying fish. Slowly but surely, we introduce him to new foods and he decides he likes them. All we're doing is trying on new foods. In college, I grew up with 80s supermodels. I used to think the only kind of woman I'd be attracted to was a skinny girl. Then I tried college and I realized, there's other kinds of women too. And they don't look like supermodels and they're also attractive. It just was a matter of trying. And I always thought that I wanted, my clients are smart, strong, successful career women. She's on track to be partner at the law firm who are culturally literate, can introduce me to new things. It's not who I married. You try different things on for size and you see what fits. The problem is we keep on trying on the same guy in a different body and wondering why nothing changes.
So is it possible to be too open?
Listen, you can't accidentally find yourself married to someone. Like, if you try a food or go to a restaurant and you don't like it, you spit it out and you don't go to the restaurant again. Like, I tried to date a guy who was, and I'm not telling you to do this, by the way, this is not a good idea. I tried to date a guy who was unemployed and living with his mom, and it didn't work. Well, okay. Well, I guess that's too open-minded. There's plenty of guys I wouldn't date at all that a lot of women will date. In my course,
Right.
I have hard nose on a lot of things that women say yes to, for example. Why? Because we're trying to reach a destination. And if you go make the wrong choice in the first month, you end up way, way, way off course. So in Love You, no to separated guys, no to recently divorced guys, no to long distance guys, no to guys who don't know if they want to get married or have children. Hard no. Not the maybe, we'll see, maybe for the right person. No. So we try to make big, smart decisions right up front so that 6 months into a relationship, the one thing you know is you're on the same track. Not, I have to sort of wait and see 2 years if he proposes to me, where you've given away all your power and now he's the CEO and you're the intern.
I think that is where, like, we've also seen the too open be a problem. It's not necessarily too open on, like, giving the right people a chance of being open to a different package, but it's this ambiguity that you're kind of like taking and just seeing what happens when someone's clearly told you they're not on the same page.
There's a lot of wishful thinking in dating. And again, I happen to work with women. I'm no doubt men do the exact same thing. You can't have a relationship dependent upon someone changing for you, right? We have to assume that this is it. This is all there's ever going to be.
Right.
So I got one client right now. She's dating a guy in France. I don't recommend that. That's her choice. Another one, her boyfriend, divorced in February, says he doesn't have any plans of getting married again. I have no power. All I could do is raise my hand and tell her how to best navigate the choices she's made. I think there is a narrow lane of quality men. I don't think that's something that's in your head. I think it's real. But that's all the more reason to vet people like a CEO would vet a new employee who's eventually supposed to run the company. You really want to make a good decision. We're not messing around here.
Right.
Right? Instead of keeping our fingers crossed because you're lonely, he's attractive, he's interested in you. A lot of women just get chosen by men and they're like, oh, I guess he's my boyfriend.
Yeah.
And they haven't really chosen. It would be like someone chose a job for you and told you to do it. You would never consent to that.
Yeah.
Hey, congratulations, you're an electrician.
Yeah, that's very true. Back to the top of this episode, we were talking about your belief is that people can show up in a way to attract more dateable people. What does that showing up look like?
Let's reverse it for a second. And I would ask you guys, I mean, I could answer the question, but I'd love to hear your opinion. What do you find attractive? If you were to say, here's what a high value man looks like, how would you answer that question?
I mean, I think someone that's reliable, that's consistent, that keeps their word, that you feel comfortable with, that you enjoy being around. I think you need to have attraction to someone. I think you need to enjoy being in someone's company because it's going to be many, many years with this person. That being said, do they need to be a comedian or a supermodel? No, but you still need to like feel good in their presence. I think that's ultimately for me was how do I feel around this person? And am I showing up as my best self? Like, are they bringing out the qualities that I like the most and my friends like the most and I feel good around?
That's super wise, Julie. I love that.
For me right now, just one word. Julie knows this word. A man with conviction who doesn't waver, who can commit to a decision, who can keep his promises, who can let things go and be brave enough to do that when the time is right, and someone who has respect for himself and for the people around him. And I find men with really quality friendships very attractive.
I'm going to share my personal point of view for whatever it's worth and add to your personal point of view. As a man, the thing that was the hardest for me to find, and this is, again, a cue for any woman listening, if you could be this person, you're the winner. I couldn't find one person who accepted me as I was. Every woman wanted to change me.
That's
and I'm not saying she was wrong, whatever my flaws are that are manifest. Everyone was like, I love you, but it's a constant list of things that I could do to make her like me more. My wife is the only person who's like, you're good, I'll keep you. That was so refreshing. So to flip that around again, if you're saying, what do I look for in a man? What are the 5 qualities that I need? Maybe 6. Character, kindness, consistency, communication, commitment, connection. And in my estimation, that's what both of you just said in your own words.
Yeah, because it's like the follow through. I mean, I think for so long, like I didn't meet that person that when things, I don't want to say got hard, but like fought for the relationship and wanted to keep things going. Like so many people at the sign of any sort of disagreement or anything that came up were just like, okay, this is too much, peace out. And I think seeing someone that would step up and was equally as committed as me was a sign too of like, okay, there's something here. Like this is it. you know?
You guys know attachment styles and the secure and anxious and avoidant. And the people who run are often the anxious and avoidant. Anxious run because they're protecting themselves from getting ghosted by some guy and they make a big deal about some tiny thing that you could probably work out.
Yeah.
The avoidant is always yo-yoing you and you can never feel secure and everything is another reason to undermine the relationship subconsciously. So if you date a secure person, a lot of these problems just go away. How does someone change their attachment style? Date someone who knows how to form an intimate attachment and resolve conflict and has no desire to go anywhere. And that's not a small slice of people.
So the picking piece, like that's clearly a big part of it, is who do you pick? Do you see that as the biggest issue for smart, successful women that you coach? Or are there other things too that are getting in people's way?
You guys have covered a lot of things today that get in people's way that are all very important. I think the hardest part for my clientele is that they're 95th percentile women. They're rock stars. You know who these people are. So they're rock stars. And they're trying to date the male versions of themselves because that's what they're attracted to and that's what they feel they deserve.
Yeah, we see that a lot.
And there's a problem with that. Not a moral problem. There's just a math problem with that.
Yeah.
If you are a woman who is, I'm going to make this up, you're 5'8", you make $250,000 a year, you have a master's degree, you own your own home, you speak 2 languages, you're a black diamond skier, you went to an Ivy League university, whatever your story is. Well, what percentage of men are like that to start? 0.01% of men are that. And we could do the math, right?
Yeah.
86% of people are lower than 6 feet tall, and only 5% of guys make over 200,000, and only 10% of people have master's degree. If you multiply all those numbers together, and then you add in, he has to be Jewish. Well, that's 1.7% of the population. Like, the math eventually fails. Right? So we're dealing with this tiny sliver of the population, and then on top of it, ignoring human nature. A lot of those guys don't want to date the opposite sex version of themselves. They want to date someone who is more easygoing,
Right.
who's less critical, who's less busy.
Yeah.
Rupert Murdoch is not looking for another billionaire. He's looking for a blonde 30 years younger, right? Like, that's what he wants. So there's a percentage of those guys who don't want to date themselves while she wants to date herself. And then when she finally gets the male version of herself, what do we see? A lot of ego, a lot of ambition, a lot of opinion. They're too similar. And that's why there's a lot of friction. And those relationships take a lot of work. Why can't we just be the power couple? I don't know. Usually there's Ruth Bader Ginsburg's husband wasn't the Supreme Court justice. So we're really looking for compatibility, which is how puzzle pieces fit together. It's not similarity.
Yeah.
But similarity is attractive. That's what's familiar. I was that way. I wanted East Coast Jewish, liberal, intellectual, da-da-da-da. I married none of those.
I mean, as women, we're taught this narrative, you got to raise your standards.
Yeah.
You got to be with someone who's at your caliber, especially right now with the feminist movement. Everyone's like, you're a high quality woman. You should be with a high quality man.
Right. What are we raising our standards for, Yue? What are we raising our standards for?
Well, I was going to say that the point you're making is we have a skewed sense what standards mean.
Right.
Yeah.
I think standards mean it's in the pedigree, it's in the how much they make, their occupation. But you're saying the standards are in the character of the commitment, the consistency, all the C's.
Right. My wife is the best person I know. Right? I could walk around to LA and find people who are more impressive than she is on paper and younger and thinner and more educated and make more money. And there's no temptation. I am the happiest guy in the world. I hit the wife jackpot. Really. Once you hit that jackpot, you become an evangelist for like, oh, wow, I was doing it wrong for so many years. I thought about what I deserved, and I thought it was the opposite sex version of me, but better than me, but without my flaws. And it was not. It was the person who complimented me, not compliment, right? Just person who gets you and digs you. Julie, like you were saying, I could go on a cross-country road trip with my wife with a broken car radio, and we would have a blast. Why? Because she's just my favorite person.
Yeah.
Even though I could acknowledge that there are people more impressive.
Yep.
And she can too.
Yeah.
Her boyfriend before me was 6'7". I can't compete with 6'7". I'm Jewish.
We've talked about this before too. It's like people are so afraid of settling, yet they settle for situationships and bad treatment all the time, but they won't settle for someone that's under 6 feet or whatever it might be.
Did you guys have Lori Gottlieb on the show by any chance?
We have not yet. We'd love to have her one day.
Did you read either of her last 2 books?
The Case for Settling was one of them, right? And then she had the therapy one. I love that one.
The therapy one was the huge bestseller. And that was
Yeah.
when I coached her through the writing of that book. And I remember when I was working with her, she's Yale, she's Stanford, she's NPR, she sold her childhood diary. She's a superstar, right? And she was holding out for the male version of her. And then she turned 40 and then she decided to get a sperm donor, have a family, never got married, never put the whole thing together. And I'd say that that's public information. She's a friend for 25 years. I'm not being critical.
Yeah.
But she was holding out for something instead of paying attention to how she felt in the relationship and how he treated her in the relationship. And for someone who is so achievement oriented, it's good to have a man behind the woman. You don't need 2 superstars who are in the spotlight. Do you think that there's maybe another reason that Hollywood marriages fail? Maybe.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And the ones that succeed, right? Matt Damon and his wife, do you know her name? Maybe you do, but he's not doing the same thing as Affleck. There's a soft science to compatibility, and a lot of people try to crack it. So how do you know? How does it feel?
Yeah.
I'm always asking women to listen to their feelings. If women are the more sensitive, intuitive creatures, why do they spend so much time ignoring their own feelings when their boyfriend is disrespecting them, when he's not valuing them, he's dismissing their opinion, he's not seeing them?
Yeah.
They ignore their feelings to get along.
Yes.
And all I'm saying is listen to your own feelings. Dump his ass. And if you keep on dumping, one guy is going to come along and he's going to do everything right. And you're going to be so confused because it's so easy. And that's all of my love you love stories. Evan, I never thought I'd be with a guy like X, but everything you said turned out to be true, and I've never been happier, and I couldn't even believe, and all they had to do was try a different kind of food.
I feel like for me, that was so pivotal of starting to look at my feelings, which is funny because I have a lot of feelings, but for whatever reason in dating, I was always caught in my head and I was not listening to my feelings, or I was getting hung up on that feeling of like when you're together and it feels amazing, and then forgetting about that feeling when you don't hear from them for like 2 weeks after. So you're like in a fantasy failing type of thing.
Attraction overrides everything. That's the hard part is if we have this intense attraction, we'll forgive anything. He could be a murderer. You'd be like, well, how many people did he murder? We'll forgive all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
And if he's not attractive and he's a perfectly nice guy, he's got a freckle on his elbow. I think it's really ugly. I'm done with this guy.
Yeah, for sure.
It's so true. I think like for me, the reason that I was single, I mean, I'm glad obviously things worked out the way they did because I met my partner, felt exactly like you just said. But for years, I was hanging on to someone, on again, off again relationship because of that attraction, because in my head, I believed that this was kind of the best for me and the one and all that stuff. When someone's in that mentality, like they just can't get over someone who's clearly not good for them and committing, what do you do?
It's almost like staging an intervention.
Yeah.
You really have to hold the mirror up to someone and shake them by the lapels a little bit. I have an exercise that I do with people in Love You to write down all the bad stuff that their boyfriend has done, write down all the feelings that it's made you feel, insecure, exhausted, sad, worthless. I ask people to just document how they feel and then look at it.
Yeah.
Why are you fighting so hard to preserve these feelings?
Yeah.
And then at a certain point, it becomes undeniable.
Yeah.
But I love him. When we're together, I mean, there's moments, he still says he can't live without me. In the first 3 months, he said he never met anybody like me. So we anchor to these moments.
Yes, we do.
And we forget that, like, okay, now, like 70% of the relationship is bad and like 30% is good. And we cling to the 30% instead of paying attention to the ratio we were talking about earlier. It's got to be 95% good. Otherwise, it's not even worth preserving, right?
Yeah.
I have a saying, many sayings, an asshole is a good guy 80% of the time.
Yeah, our memories are very selective.
We get caught up at the 80%. We forget that's 20% too much asshole.
Yeah.
Also, in your example, Julie, I feel like you did hit rock bottom in that last relationship. And that's what instigated the change for this one, right? And made you want to do something different this time around and not feel like you're, in this really difficult relationship. Do you also find, Evan, that your clients say that men find me intimidating? I'm such a high caliber woman. I'm so successful. Men find me too intimidating. What do I do with that information?
I'm so glad you brought that up. This is another yes and. Are there men who find you intimidating? Yes. He's not secure man enough to be with you. It's a statement about him. There are men who are intimidated by beautiful women and intelligent women and accomplished women. They're not part of the conversation. So even if 50% of men are intimidated by you or 80% of men are intimidated by you, doesn't matter. We're still talking about, what about the men who are not intimidated by you? The ones who are really worthy of you. Why wouldn't he choose you? That's worth further exploration, because we can say 80% of guys are not good enough. 80% of guys are not intimidated. Okay, let's say everything you're saying is completely true. But there are men who are good enough. There are good men who want to treat a woman right and start a family. And they're everywhere. Like, it's not just like, where are they? And think about that from a logical standpoint. Where are they hiding? Well, where are all the good women hiding? It's not like there's like a place that nobody's told you about. It's not one site or one app or one cool bar.
Everyone thinks it is, though. They're all looking for the secret place.
So that's the biggest question. Where are they? They're mixed in with everybody else. You have to be able to sniff them out like a truffle pig to figure out where are the good guys. They're in there, right? And how do you know? Because of how they make you feel. And really just listen to that, his consistency, how he follows up, how he looks at you, how you never have to doubt for a second his version of events, whether his word matches his deed, whether he's looking to date anybody else. You'll feel with him the way you should feel with your best friend. Being with a good boyfriend is like being with your best girlfriend. It is that easy, that fun, that uncomplicated. When you're building a life together, other things are more complicated because from your best friend, you could separate, right? So there's greater complication in building a life with your best friend, just like some women have had roommates. We're like, oh, we were best friends and then we lived together and then we weren't best friends.
Yeah.
So yes, it's certainly more complicated than that.
Yep.
But on a day-by-day basis, my wife is my favorite person to talk to. No matter how bad things are at work, I go out there and everything's good again.
I think like I felt the same exact way in my current relationship. I was like, this feels so different than anyone else. This is my best friend, favorite person. And I was just like, for years, I didn't think this was possible. Like, I didn't think this was a thing. And I think so many daters we talk to are just caught up in bad situationships or bad dating experiences that we lose track of like what good relationships even are. Like, let's say you just aren't having the success that you want. Like, what's a way that you can feel the hope and positivity that someone is out there that could be that person for you?
I literally just did a thing on this. I have a program called Believe in Love. It's like a 250-page book, 6-hour audio on this topic alone for people who've lost their faith that good stuff is out there. Not trying to sell anything.
Yeah.
Just pointing out that it's very easy to kind of get caught up in your own narrative and whatever the opposite of rose-colored glasses are. When you start to see everything through that lens of negativity, all guys are a waste of time. Online dating's terrible. There's no one in my city. All the good ones are taken. They're just trying to get laid. They only want to text. I know all of these things. And yet every week I get someone sending me a wedding photo. So which is it? Well, it's both. There are some people who persevere, learn from their mistakes, fix their broken man pickers, and get the kind of relationship.
Right.
And then there's the people who quit dating for 5 years to work on themselves or focus on their career or don't learn from their mistakes. They just keep on trying to date the same kind of guy over and over and wonder why nothing ever works out. And it's because of the kind of guy you're choosing, whether it's consciously or subconsciously. So there's always hope, because I've helped women, and again, it's not about me, but I've helped women who are in their 70s. I've helped women in wheelchairs. I've helped women who are blind. So whoever you are who's listening, you've probably got it easier than someone that I've helped.
Obviously, this conversation's been geared to women just because that is your clientele, but this applies to everyone. I think we hear this from everyone.
Absolutely. I wrote an article when I was 34 years old called Last Single Guy Standing. I wrote it for Match.com, right? And I talked about being a 34-year-old dating coach with 2 books who had no idea what the fuck he was doing and couldn't figure out why he was still single and what I was doing wrong, right? And the deep hypocrisy of that feeling. Right. And so I do think it's really normal. And it is the value of listening to your podcast or listening to mine or getting help in some form is if what you're doing isn't working, you got to do something differently. Not just think differently, act differently, choose differently. That's why I liken it to a diet, because it's something that most people can understand.
Yeah.
So for people who say, I don't know what to do, there are directions. There's like a manual that could walk you through the process of where you are into a happy relationship. But it takes guts to say this isn't working. And most people would rather spin than do something differently, unfortunately.
Help us solve this mystery, though, as we close out this episode. The women you've described who are your clients are exactly the type of women our male listeners say they want to meet. Yet they're not meeting. For some reason, there's all these eligible single quality people out there, but they're not meeting each other. What's happening here? Why is there such a disconnect between all these singles?
It's another podcast. I'm not inviting myself back, but this is a huge, huge can of worms. I think in general, and I'm not going to say whether I have feelings about this, I'll just observe what you've probably observed. Women have become more masculine. Men have become more feminine. And the set of roles and expectations are just blurrier than they've ever been before. I think it's just that much more complicated because women want, and again, I'm being very gentle, but women want to be equal and are equal.
Yeah.
But I still want him to pick up the check all the time for the first month that we're dating. I want a man who's sensitive to my needs, but I don't need some sensitive, weak guy who's always vulnerable and complaining all the time. I want a guy who's like a strong, masculine man. I got a strong masculine man. That's what I'm attracted to, but he doesn't want to talk about his feelings. So there's all these internal contradictions about what we want. We want the Marlboro man and the sensitive artist all wrapped up in one.
Yeah.
And he does want the corporate lawyer, but he also wants the first grade teacher to take care of him, to make him dinner, to tell him he's perfect, right? Everybody wants everything.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I think it's the world that we're in, the on-demand environment, the Amazon effect that we could just have whatever at any time. Anyways, there is so much to unpack here. Thank you so much, Evan. I think like the biggest takeaway I have from all this is we really need to get more exploratory. Like this date like a podcast or date like a scientist, whatever you want to call it, just this openness to try new things. And like you said, you don't have to marry the person, just trying something, keeping an open mind, judging how you feel. I also like this 95% because we hear people, I don't want to settle. And we're the first people to say, we don't want you to settle either. Yeah. But we also want to make sure that you're not like settling for the wrong things because we see that happen so much. And it really comes down to what we talked about of the character, the commitment, the communication, all the things that we went into of what matters. And we get so caught up in the wrong things. A lot of that has to do with those are the criteria we're fed to by society or on dating apps. So it is up to us to learn from it, to recognize what we're doing isn't working, and let's try something new. It's all about trial and error.
I think my biggest takeaway, I love this metaphor of trying on the same outfit over and over again, because I get that. I mean, like when I look at my relationship history, they look different, but they're the exact same feel. And I am just trying on the same outfit, but my body has changed. I've grown in different ways, and I'm still trying to make this outfit fit somehow. Yeah. And I just got to know that I need to try on some other different outfits that make me feel my best, that complement my new hair color, that complement my new lifestyle. That's kind of, where my head is at now. It's just, it's not even just about being open to all kinds of different types. It's recognizing that I've been trying on the same outfit. Time to try something new. Yeah. I think it's important for you to help us answer this question. What does dateable mean to you?
Sure. Dateable means that you are the person that you want to date. There's what we're attracted to and what we feel we deserve. You have to be that person to be able to get that person. So I'd like to think that everybody is dateable when they're really at their best, at their most comfortable, who they are around their best friend and their mom and their sister. And so how do we bring her out into the dating world? The person you are when you're at your very best, bring her to every date.
Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to have you on here. Where can people get in touch with you? Yeah. All that.
I've been doing this for a while, so I'm hopefully pretty Googleable. Every social media platform, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Love You podcast as well. But my free gift for your listeners is called 7 Massive Mistakes You're Making in Dating. If you go to evanmarckatz.com/dateable, just type that in, Evan Marc Katz with a C, Evan Marc with a C, K with a K. Oh. You could click on that and download that free gift, and I'll send you free dating and relationship advice until you tell me no more advice. I finally got a guy who's taking care of me.
Thank you for that gift.
Awesome. We'll link that in our show notes.
Personalized for us. How kind of you, Evan. Thank you so much. For our listeners, thank you for listening in and tuning in this episode. We always appreciate a nice 5-star review in Apple Podcasts. So just give us 5 stars and write a little something about what you learned from Evan Marc Katz today. We appreciate all the feedback you give us. And with that, we're going to wrap up this episode. Stay dateable. The Dateable podcast is part of the Frolic Media Network. Find more podcasts you'll love at frolic.media/podcasts. You can follow us on Instagram at Dateable Podcast and visit dateablepodcast.com for access to all the episodes and our premium programs. Also, make sure to subscribe today if you haven't already on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast platform so you are the first to get all the latest episodes. And most importantly, stay dateable.